The following content is provided strictly for educational and entertainment purposes. It does not constitute legal, safety, or professional driving advice. The scenarios depicted and discussed involve high-risk situations on public roadways. Viewers are strongly advised to always adhere to local traffic laws, maintain situational awareness, and never attempt to replicate dangerous maneuvers. While dashcam footage can provide valuable insights into road safety, every traffic incident is unique, and historical trends or case studies discussed here should not be taken as a definitive guide for legal liability or insurance outcomes. Use of a dashcam involves various state-specific privacy and consent laws. Therefore, you should conduct your own due diligence regarding the legality of recording in your specific jurisdiction. The creators of this content are not responsible for any actions taken by viewers based on the information presented. In the next 60 seconds, 3 major collisions will occur on United States soil, and statistically, at least one of those will involve a driver who never even saw the threat coming. You are currently looking at a piece of asphalt that represents one of the most dangerous environments in the modern world, yet we treat it with the casual indifference of a living room couch. We are entering an era where the divide between a routine commute and a life-altering catastrophe is measured not in minutes, but in milliseconds. Consider the case study of the Interstate 95 corridor, a stretch of road that has seen some of the highest densities of near-miss incidents in North American history. Scientists and traffic safety experts often refer to the Swiss cheese model of accident causation, where a disaster only occurs when the holes in multiple layers of defense, human reaction, mechanical reliability, and environmental conditions all line up perfectly. What you are about to witness in this deep dive is what happens when those holes almost align, but a frantic jerk of the steering wheel or a panic stomp on the brake pedal barely keeps the tragedy at bay. We are pulling back the curtain on the silent epidemic of the American highway, the near miss. These are the moments that never make the evening news because nobody died, yet they carry the same psychological weight and provide more instructional value than any fatal crash report ever could. The problem we are solving today is the erosion of situational awareness in an age of total distraction. For the average American driver, the road has become a secondary focus, eclipsed by infotainment systems, mobile devices, and the false sense of security provided by modern driver assistance technologies. This video is a masterclass in visual forensic analysis, designed to recalibrate your internal threat detection radar. By the end of this deep dive, you will not just be watching cars swerve. You will be identifying the pre-event indicators, the subtle lane deviations, the aggressive nose-heavy braking of a distant vehicle, and the phantom movements in blind spots that signal a disaster is brewing before it ever manifests. We are moving beyond the shock value of the footage to understand the underlying physics and psychology of why these unbelievable moments occur on U.S. roads. To understand the stakes, we must look at the historical trends of road safety in the United States. Since the mid-20th century, vehicle safety has improved exponentially with the introduction of crumple zones, anti-lock braking systems, and electronic stability control. However, data from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration reveals a troubling paradox. As cars get safer, human behavior often becomes riskier, a phenomenon known as risk compensation. When drivers feel protected by technology, they tend to take more risks, closing the gap between themselves and the car in front or increasing their speed in inclement weather. This masterclass will examine how this psychological safety net often fails when faced with the raw kinetic energy of a multi-ton vehicle traveling at highway speeds. We are going to break down the specific mechanics of the inattentional blindness that leads to some of the most shocking "how did they not see that?" moments caught on camera. We will explore the specific environmental factors that turn a standard U.S. highway into a high-stakes obstacle course. From the black ice corridors of the Midwest to the high-heat tire delamination zones of the Southwest, geography plays a silent but deadly role in these near-miss compilations. We will look at case studies involving the merge dilemma, a recurring theme in urban centers like Los Angeles, Atlanta, and Chicago, where the collision of different driving cultures and varying speed differentials creates a volatile mix of metal and momentum. We are diving deep into the vigilance decrement, a cognitive state where a driver's ability to detect signals on the road declines over time, especially during long-haul interstate travel. This is why many of the most unbelievable near misses happen on straight, clear stretches of road where the driver has been lulled into a trance-like state. Furthermore, we will analyze the role of road rage and the de-individuation effect. When people are shielded by the glass and steel of their vehicles, They often lose the social inhibitions that govern face-to-face interactions. This leads to high-speed brake checking, aggressive tailgating, and the punishment pass, all of which are primary catalysts for the footage you are about to see. We will look at the potential outcomes of these behaviors, not just in terms of physical damage, but in legal consequences and the long tail of trauma that a near-death experience leaves behind. This isn't just about the unbelievable nature of the clips. It's about the very real, very human errors that lead up to them. Throughout this series, we will also discuss the rise of the silent witness, the dashcam itself. 10 years ago, dashcam footage was a rarity, often relegated to grainy police interceptor videos. Today, millions of American drivers have become amateur documentarians of the road. This surge in data has allowed researchers to move from post-hoc analysis, looking at the aftermath of a crash, to real-time behavioral study. We are seeing for the first time the exact sequence of events, the lead-in, that characterizes a near miss. We will evaluate how this footage is changing the landscape of insurance claims and the comparative negligence laws in various states, where a few seconds of video can mean the difference between a total loss and a cleared name. This masterclass is designed to be your definitive guide to the anatomy of a near miss. We will categorize these events into 3 primary tiers: the environmental escape, where the driver battles the elements; the mechanical failure, where technology betrays the operator; and the human error, which remains the single largest factor in U.S. road incidents. You will learn the 3-second rule, not as a suggestion, but as a mathematical necessity dictated by the physics of stopping distances and human reaction times. We will calculate the kinetic potential of common vehicles, explaining why a near miss with a commercial semi-truck is a vastly different experience than one with a subcompact car. Prepare to have your assumptions about road safety challenged. We are moving away from the "it won't happen to me" mindset and toward a "when it happens, I'll be ready" philosophy. This is the deep dive into the unbelievable reality of the American road, where the line between a normal Tuesday and a catastrophic event is thinner than the paint on a lane marker. We will explore the physics of frustration, the geometry of a lane change, and the psychology of the last second. This is part 1 of our 10-part masterclass, and the journey begins with the foundational understanding that every near miss is a lesson that someone else paid for, so you don't have to. To understand the true anatomy of a near miss, we have to look past the screeching tires and the shattered glass that never quite happened. We have to look at the biology of the driver. Imagine you are James, a 34-year-old account manager in Austin, Texas. It is a Tuesday morning in April 2026. James is driving a mid-sized electric SUV equipped with the latest Level 2 autonomous assistance. He feels safe. He feels insulated. As he approaches a major intersection on Congress Avenue, the light is green. In his mind, green is a permission slip to maintain his velocity of 45 miles per hour. But in the world of tactical driving, green is merely a suggestion that the path might be clear. Case studies from the Texas Department of Transportation suggest that intersection-related incidents account for nearly 40% of all traffic accidents in urban environments. As James enters the intersection, a heavy-duty delivery truck coming from the opposite direction decides to attempt an unprotected left turn. The truck driver, likely experiencing a phenomenon known as the size arrival effect, misjudges James's speed. Humans naturally perceive larger objects as moving slower than smaller ones, even when they are traveling at the same velocity. The truck pulls directly into James's path. In this millisecond, James's brain undergoes a massive chemical surge. This is the adrenaline pivot. His prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for logical decision-making, is bypassed by the amygdala. This is raw survival. James doesn't have time to calculate the coefficient of friction on the asphalt or the braking distance required to dissipate 60,000 joules of kinetic energy. He slams on the brakes. Because it is 2026, his vehicle's automatic emergency braking or AEB system has already detected the obstacle and pre-charged the brake lines, reducing the mechanical lag by nearly 200 milliseconds. This is where the near miss is decided. Historical trends in automotive safety show that those 200 milliseconds are the difference between a high-speed T-bone collision and a heart-pounding stop. James stops exactly 4 inches from the truck's passenger door. The unbelievable nature of this near miss isn't just that he stopped, it's that the physics of the situation were pushed to their absolute limit. If James had been driving a model from 2016, the mechanical delay of the hydraulic system might have resulted in a catastrophic outcome. But why did this happen in the first place? We must examine the concept of cognitive tunneling. When James saw the green light, his brain created a mental model of an empty path. When the truck appeared, it didn't just physically block the road. It shattered James's mental model. This creates a secondary risk, the reactionary swerve. Many near misses caught on dashcams show drivers swerving into adjacent lanes to avoid a primary collision, only to nearly cause a secondary, often worse, accident with the vehicle they hadn't even noticed. Now, shift your perspective to a different case study. Imagine Sarah, a delivery driver in the suburbs of Chicago. It is late October 2026, and a light dusting of sleet has turned the local collectors into skating rinks. Sarah is experienced, but she is fighting the vigilance decrement. She has been on the road for 6 hours. As she approaches a residential stop sign, a car from the cross street fails to stop. This is a classic stop sign violation scenario. Sarah's dashcam captures the car sliding through the intersection at 30 miles per hour. Sarah's potential outcome in this scenario relies entirely on her space cushioning. While most drivers in the US follow at a distance of 1 to 2 car lengths, Sarah maintains a 4-second gap. This 4-second gap is a buffer of time, not just distance. When the road car slides into her lane, Sarah doesn't need to perform a high-stakes maneuver. She simply eases off the accelerator and applies progressive braking. The near miss is unbelievable to the viewers of her dashcam footage because the car misses her bumper by a hair's breadth. But for Sarah, it was a managed risk. This brings us to the psychology of the near miss. When we watch these clips, we experience a secondary trauma response. Our palms sweat, our heart rates increase, and we feel a phantom jolt of electricity. This is because our brains are hardwired to learn from threats without actually experiencing the physical damage. This video is a tool for vicarious learning. By analyzing Sarah's space cushioning and James's AEB activation, you are building a library of defensive responses. Consider the data on distracted driving in 2026. Despite aggressive legislation and the integration of hands-free technology, the National Safety Council reports that phone-related distractions contribute to thousands of near misses daily. Many of the unbelievable clips you see are the result of a driver looking down for just 1.5 seconds. At 60 miles per hour, a car travels 88 feet per second. In the time it takes to check a notification, you have traveled the length of nearly half a football field while essentially blindfolded. The unbelievable near misses on US roads are often a result of multiple threat overlap. This occurs when an environmental factor, like a blinding sunset on a westbound highway, overlaps with a human error, like an aggressive lane change. Case studies of the I-10 corridor in Arizona show that during golden hour, near-miss rates spike by 25%. Drivers are blinded, yet they maintain their speed, relying on the tail lights of the car in front of them as a guide. When that car suddenly swerves to avoid debris, the blinded driver has zero time to react. Step by step, let's break down the anatomy of a recovery. First is the detection phase, where the eyes register the anomaly. Second is the evaluation phase, where the brain determines if the anomaly is a threat. Third is the response phase, where the physical action is taken. In the most unbelievable near misses, these 3 phases happen in under 700 milliseconds. We are talking about the limits of human biology. As we move deeper into this masterclass, we have to address a growing trend in the 2026 driving landscape: the false sense of autonomy. Many drivers believe their vehicles are more capable than they actually are. They treat their pilot or drive assist systems as a replacement for situational awareness, rather than a supplement to it. This leads to what safety experts call automation complacency. You will see clips where a car's sensors are confused by heavy rain or faded lane markings, leading to a sudden terrifying veer toward a concrete median. The only reason these aren't fatal crashes is the split-second intervention of a driver who was just barely paying enough attention. We are not just looking at luck. We are looking at the intersection of technology, physics, and human reflexes. But what happens when the threat isn't another car or a distracted driver? What happens when the road itself seems to conspire against you? Or when a massive mechanical failure occurs at 75 miles per hour in the middle of a 5-lane highway? Imagine you are cruising on the 405 in Los Angeles. The traffic is flowing at a brisk pace for once. Suddenly, the car 2 vehicles ahead of you loses a tire. Not a blowout, but the entire wheel assembly detaches and begins bouncing toward your windshield like a heat-seeking missile. This isn't a scenario you can prepare for in a standard driver's ed course. This is the chaos variable. In the next part, we are going to dive into the physics of debris avoidance. We will analyze how to handle high-speed projectiles and why your first instinct to swerve might be the deadliest mistake you could make. We will also uncover the truth about phantom traffic jams and how a single near miss can cause a ripple effect that stalls an entire city's infrastructure for hours. Why do some drivers seem to have a sixth sense for danger before it even appears on their dashcam? The answer lies in a hidden pattern of traffic flow that most people ignore until it is too late. To understand this sixth sense, we must look at the reticular activating system in the human brain. This is a network of neurons located in the brainstem that acts as a filter for the massive amount of sensory data we consume every second. Expert drivers, through thousands of hours of historical trends observed on the road, have trained their reticular activating system to ignore the static of roadside billboards and focus exclusively on anomalies. When a driver has a gut feeling that something is wrong, it is usually because their subconscious has detected a break in a pattern before their conscious mind can articulate it. This might be a slight puff of brake dust from a semi-truck or a vehicle 2 lanes over that is traveling just 3 miles per hour faster than the flow of traffic. These are the pre-event indicators of a near miss. Consider the case study of Marcus, a 38-year-old software engineer driving from Tampa to Orlando on Interstate 4 in July 2026. This stretch of road is notorious for high-speed congestion and sudden weather shifts. Marcus is in the middle lane, maintaining a steady 70 miles per hour. Ahead of him is a commercial flatbed truck carrying construction materials. To the untrained eye, everything looks normal. But Marcus's brain registers a micro-vibration in the orange webbing of a tie-down strap on the truck. This is the chaos variable in action. Imagine if Marcus had been looking at his central display to change a playlist. He would have missed the exact moment the tension in that strap failed. In a fraction of a second, a large sheet of plywood catches the wind, becoming an aerodynamic wing. It lifts off the truck bed and begins a chaotic, tumbling descent toward Marcus's windshield. At 70 miles per hour, that plywood is not just a piece of wood. It is a high-velocity projectile with a kinetic energy profile determined by the equation.
Keskiviikko yhtä suuri kuin
2, 1, mv. 2. Because the velocity is squared, even a relatively light object like a sheet of plywood carries immense destructive potential at highway speeds. The potential outcome for Marcus depends on his understanding of the physics of debris avoidance. His first instinct, like many drivers in unbelievable dashcam clips, is to swerve violently. However, at 70 miles per hour, a sudden lateral movement can exceed the lateral acceleration limits of his tires. Even in 2026, with Advanced Electronic Stability Control or ESC, a violent swerve can initiate a trip-over event if the tires catch a groove in the asphalt or if the weight transfer is too aggressive. The ESC system works by applying individual brakes to specific wheels to counteract oversteer or understeer, but it cannot defy the laws of physics if the center of gravity is thrown too far off axis. Marcus chooses a different path. He performs a controlled deceleration while staying within his lane. He knows that the plywood's flight path is unpredictable, and by swerving he might actually put himself directly into its new trajectory. He trusts his vehicle's crumple zones and safety glass over the high-risk gamble of a high-speed swerve into a neighbor's lane. The plywood slams into the asphalt just 10 feet in front of him, shatters into a cloud of splinters, and Marcus drives through the debris field without a scratch. This near miss is unbelievable because of how close the wood came to his glass, but the survival was a result of disciplined restraint. This leads us to the swerve versus brake dilemma, a critical component of our masterclass. Historical trends in U.S. dashcam footage show that more secondary accidents are caused by the avoidance maneuver than by the primary threat itself. When you swerve, you are moving from a known danger into an unknown space. You might avoid the plywood but collide with a motorcyclist in your blind spot, who is also accelerating to get away from the truck. In 2026, many vehicles feature blind spot collision avoidance assist, which will actually resist a driver's steering input if it detects a vehicle in the adjacent lane. This creates a moment of human-machine conflict, where the driver is trying to swerve to save their life, and the car is trying to keep the lane to prevent a sideswipe. Understanding these systems is vital for the modern American driver. Now let's analyze the phantom traffic jam, a phenomenon that often follows a near miss. Imagine Chloe, a project manager in Northern Virginia, navigating the I-95 corridor during the 2026 evening rush hour. 3 miles ahead of her, a driver nearly misses an exit and slams on their brakes, causing the car behind them to swerve. Neither car crashes and both continue on their way. However, they have just released a shockwave into the traffic flow. Traffic behaves much like a fluid. When that first driver tapped their brakes, the driver behind them tapped theirs slightly harder to maintain a safety buffer. This is the slinky effect. By the time this ripple reaches Chloe 3 miles back, the slight tap of the brakes has amplified into a full emergency stop. This is why you often find yourself at a dead stop on the highway for 10 minutes, only for traffic to suddenly clear with no evidence of an accident. The near miss was the catalyst. In 2026, the prevalence of electric vehicles with regenerative braking has slightly altered this dynamic. When an EV driver lifts off the accelerator, the car slows down immediately without the visual cue of brake lights appearing in some older models. Though 2026 regulations have largely standardized brake light activation during high-regen events to mitigate this very risk, we must also examine the geometry of the suicide merge. This is a recurring theme in urban dashcam compilations, especially in cities like Phoenix or Dallas where frontage roads are common. A driver on a high-speed frontage road attempts to merge into a gap that doesn't exist, forced by an ending lane. They are essentially banking on the mercy of other drivers. Case studies in traffic psychology suggest that as commute times increase, driver mercy decreases. This creates a high-stakes game of chicken at 60 miles per hour. The unbelievable near misses in these scenarios often involve a vehicle being forced onto the shoulder or a narrow escape where two cars are inches apart for hundreds of feet. The step-by-step reality of avoiding this is early gap selection. Professional drivers do not look at the car immediately next to them. They look 4 to 5 cars ahead to identify where the flow of traffic is thinning. By the time they reach the merge point, they have already synchronized their speed with the open gap. But what happens when the near miss isn't a result of a merge or debris? What if the danger is a massive 80,000-pound commercial vehicle that has lost its ability to stop? The sheer scale of a near miss involving a semi-truck changes the physics entirely. In the US, the relationship between passenger vehicles and long-haul truckers is one of constant, unspoken tension. In the next part, we are going to perform a forensic breakdown of the no zone. Why are some of the most terrifying near misses actually the fault of the passenger car driver, who didn't understand the acoustic shadows and visual blind spots of a large rig? We will look at a high-stakes case study from the Grapevine in California, where a runaway truck ramp became the only thing standing between a family SUV and total destruction. Why does a semi-truck seem to suck smaller cars toward it at high speeds? And how can you use the Bernoulli principle to stay safe when passing an 18-wheeler? The physics of air pressure might be the only thing keeping you on the road in our next deep dive. The Bernoulli principle is not just a concept for textbooks or aviation. It is a physical law that dictates your survival every time you move into the lane adjacent to a multi-axle commercial vehicle. To visualize this, you have to stop seeing the air as empty space and start seeing it as a fluid, much like water. When a large semi-truck moves at 70 miles per hour, it acts as a massive blunt object pushing through this fluid. At the very front of the truck, there is a zone of high-pressure air known as the bow wave. This wave literally pushes smaller vehicles away from the truck. However, as you move alongside the trailer, the air is forced into the narrow channel between your car and the truck. Because the air must move faster to get through that tight space, the static pressure drops significantly. This creates a low-pressure vacuum that tries to pull your vehicle toward the trailer. This is the Bernoulli principle in a high-stakes, real-world application, and it is the hidden force behind thousands of near misses where drivers report feeling like an invisible hand jerked their steering wheel. Consider the case study of David, a 29-year-old nurse in Southern California, driving a 2026 lightweight electric sedan. It is a windy afternoon on the I-5 Grapevine, a notorious stretch of mountain pass where elevation changes and crosswinds create a volatile environment for heavy haulers. David is in the left lane, attempting to pass a long-haul rig that is struggling with the incline. As David's front bumper reaches the midpoint of the trailer, a sudden 30-mile-per-hour crosswind hits the side of the truck. This wind doesn't just push the truck, it amplifies the Bernoulli effect. David feels his sedan being sucked toward the truck's massive tires. In this millisecond, the potential outcome is a sideswipe that could pit maneuver David's car directly under the rear tandems of the trailer. David's survival depends on his understanding of the no zone. Historical trends show that many passenger drivers believe that if they can see the truck driver can see them. This is a catastrophic misconception. Even in 2026, with the integration of high-definition side-view cameras and ultrasonic sensors on modern rigs, there are still acoustic and visual gaps. The truck driver is sitting in a high-vibration environment where the roar of the wind and the mechanical hum of the drivetrain create an acoustic shadow. David's horn, which produces roughly 110 decibels, is largely neutralized by the turbulent air between the two vehicles. Furthermore, if David cannot see the truck driver's face in the truck side mirrors, he is effectively invisible. The unbelievable near miss captured on David's dashcam shows the truck beginning to drift into his lane. David does not slam on his brakes. In a masterclass of defensive driving, he realizes that braking would keep him in the no zone for a longer duration. Instead, he utilizes the instant torque of his electric motor to accelerate through the danger zone. He moves from the low-pressure suction area into the high-pressure bow wave at the front of the truck, which actually helps push him safely into the clear space ahead. This step-by-step recovery is a result of understanding physics over panic. We also have to analyze the geometry of the wide turn, a frequent source of unbelievable near-miss footage in urban centers like Chicago or Houston. Imagine if you are a driver waiting at a tight intersection. A semi-truck in the lane to your left starts to turn right. Many drivers see the gap opening up on the truck's right side and assume the truck is changing lanes or leaving space. They pull into that gap. This is the setup for the squeeze play. Because of the off-tracking of the trailer, where the rear wheels follow a shorter path than the front wheels, that gap disappears in seconds. The near misses here are often terrifying, involving the trailer's underride guard coming within inches of a car's windows. Case studies of these incidents reveal that the driver often has nowhere to go, boxed in by a curb or other traffic. Furthermore, let's talk about the physics of a tire blowout, specifically from a commercial vehicle. These are often referred to as road gators, large strips of steel-belted rubber that can weigh up to 100 pounds. When a truck tire disintegrates at highway speeds, the debris isn't just sitting there. It is often launched with the force of an explosion. A dashcam clip from a highway in Georgia shows a road gator being kicked up by a passing car and sent flying through the air like a projectile. The driver in the following car has less than half a second to react. The potential outcomes of a direct hit include a shattered windshield, a pierced radiator, or a loss of steering control if the debris wedges under the chassis. The unbelievable near misses in these debris scenarios are often the result of following distance. While the average U.S. driver follows at approximately 1.5 seconds, a deep dive into safety data suggests that a minimum of 4 seconds is required to even begin the detection phase of a high-speed projectile. In 2026, some vehicles have advanced road scanning LiDAR that can detect debris and prime the suspension for an impact or suggest a lane change, but the ultimate responsibility still rests with the human operator to maintain that buffer. We also need to address the phenomenon of brake fade on long descents. Imagine if a truck behind you on a mountain pass has been riding its brakes for 5 miles. The kinetic energy of 80,000 pounds being converted into heat can cause the brake drums to expand away from the shoes, or the brake fluid to boil. At this point, the truck is a runaway freight train. You might see smoke pouring from the wheels, a visual indicator that a near miss is about to occur. In these moments, the dashcam footage often shows the truck driver desperately aiming for a runaway truck ramp, while passenger cars, oblivious to the danger, are lingering in the path of the out-of-control rig. The psychology of sharing the road with these giants requires a shift in perspective. You are not competing for space. You are navigating a landscape dominated by different laws of momentum. A fully loaded semi-truck at 65 miles per hour requires the length of nearly 2 football fields to come to a complete stop. When a passenger car cuts off a truck to catch an exit, they are betting their life that the truck's air brake system and the driver's reaction time can defy those 200 yards of physics. The near misses we see are often the truck driver standing on the pedal, the anti-lock braking system pulsing at maximum frequency, and the car clearing the truck's bumper by the width of a coat of paint. As we conclude this forensic look at commercial vehicle interactions, we have to realize that the most dangerous threats aren't always the largest ones. Sometimes the most unbelievable moments on U.S. roads come from the things you cannot see until it is far too late. What happens when the road surface itself changes its molecular structure? How do you survive a near miss when your car becomes a sled on a sheet of black ice? Or when a sudden microburst of wind tries to flip your SUV at 70 miles per hour? In the next part of our masterclass, we are diving into the environmental killers, hydroplaning, black ice, and the terrifying reality of whiteout conditions. We will break down the exact second your tires lose contact with the pavement and why your most logical instinct, to steer where you want to go, might be the very thing that sends you into a terminal spin. Why does the first 10 minutes of a rainstorm in a city like Las Vegas create a more slippery surface than a frozen lake in Minnesota? The chemistry of road oil and rainwater is our next deep dive. The chemistry of the road is the silent architect of the unbelievable near miss. In cities like Las Vegas, Phoenix, or Los Angeles, months can pass without significant precipitation. During this dry spell, the microscopic pores of the asphalt pavement act as a reservoir for every fluid that leaks from the millions of vehicles passing over it. We are talking about synthetic motor oils, transmission fluids, and the fine dust created by the wearing of brake pads and tires. When the first droplets of a desert rainstorm hit this surface in 2026, they do not simply soak in. Because oil is less dense than water, the rainwater seeps into the pores and physically displaces the trapped lubricants, pushing them to the surface. For the first 10 to 15 minutes of a storm, the road is essentially covered in a microscopic layer of lubricant. Consider the case study of Elena, a 24-year-old delivery driver in Las Vegas. She is driving a 2026 electric van with high-efficiency tires designed for low rolling resistance. As a sudden thunderstorm breaks over the strip, she maintains her speed of 40 miles per hour. She feels the steering wheel go light, a classic indicator that her tires have lost their mechanical grip. This is the moment of hydroplaning. At the molecular level, her tire treads are designed to channel water away through deep grooves. However, the speed of her vehicle creates a pressure wave in front of the tire. If the water cannot be evacuated fast enough, the tire actually lifts off the pavement and begins to surf on a wedge of water and oil. Historical trends show that the coefficient of friction on a dry road is typically around 0.7. On a road during that first flush of rain, it can drop to 0.1, which is comparable to driving on a sheet of glass. Elena's van, despite being equipped with the 2026 version of traction management control, is subject to the laws of fluid dynamics. The unbelievable near-miss captured on her dashcam shows her van drifting toward a concrete barrier, while her front wheels are turned in the opposite direction. This is the understeer trap. Her vehicle continues in its original direction of travel because there is zero friction to translate her steering input into lateral movement. Now, shift the perspective to the high-latitude or high-altitude environments of the U.S. Imagine Tyler, driving a 2026 heavy-duty pickup through the snowy range on Interstate 80 in Wyoming. It is late November. The ambient temperature is 31 degrees Fahrenheit. The road appears wet, reflecting the moonlight. This is the deadliest optical illusion in the American transport system: black ice. It is not actually black. It is a thin, perfectly transparent layer of ice that lacks the trapped air bubbles found in snow or sleet. Because it is transparent, the driver sees the dark color of the asphalt beneath it and assumes the road is merely damp. Tyler approaches a bridge. Bridges are the primary sites for unbelievable near misses during the winter because of thermal isolation. While the solid ground beneath the main roadway retains geothermal heat, a bridge deck is exposed to the freezing air from both the top and the bottom. It can be 35 degrees on the highway and 28 degrees on the bridge. As Tyler's front tires hit the bridge, he experiences a total loss of traction. His dashcam shows the world beginning to rotate, a spin-out in progress. When a car begins to spin, it follows the path of its center of mass. In Tyler's case, the momentum of his heavy truck wants to keep moving in a straight line, but the rotation creates centrifugal forces that threaten to flip the vehicle if the tires suddenly regain grip on dry pavement, a phenomenon known as the high side flip. Tyler's near miss is unbelievable because he manages to slide across the entire bridge, 360 degrees, and come to a stop in the breakdown lane without hitting the guardrail. This wasn't necessarily skill. It was a rare alignment of physics where his kinetic energy dissipated perfectly through friction before he impacted an object. We must also look at the whiteout. In the Great Plains, wind speeds can reach 50 miles per hour, lifting existing snow into the air. This creates a state of total sensory deprivation. Drivers lose their sense of the horizon, the road edge, and even their own speed. Case studies from the I-94 pileups in North Dakota highlight how drivers, unable to see more than 5 feet ahead, often experience the magnet effect. They subconsciously steer toward the only thing they can see, the tail lights of the car in front of them. If that car is sliding off the road, the following driver follows them right into the ditch. The near misses and whiteouts are often silent, slow-motion events where cars miss each other by inches while the drivers are effectively blind. The potential outcomes of these environmental factors are often dictated by the vehicle's electronic stability control, or ESC. In 2026, ESC systems have become incredibly sophisticated, using high-speed sensors to detect the start of a skid before a human can feel it. The system works by applying the brake to a single wheel, for instance the outer front wheel, to create a counter moment that pulls the car back onto its intended path. However, even the most advanced ESC cannot create grip where none exists. If all 4 tires are on black ice, the computer is as helpless as the driver. Finally, let's consider the high wind microburst. In the plains of Kansas or the valleys of California, wind can act as a physical wall. A 2026 high-profile vehicle, like a Sprinter van or a boxed SUV, has a large surface area known as the sail area. If a 60-mile-per-hour gust hits the side of such a vehicle, it can generate thousands of pounds of lateral force. A dashcam from a highway near Dodge City shows an SUV being physically pushed from the left lane into the right lane. The near miss occurs when there is a car already in that right lane. The SUV driver is fighting the wind, but the wind is a constant, invisible pressure that defies their steering input. Every environmental near miss is a battle against the elements where the driver is at a severe disadvantage. We have broken down the chemistry of oil, the physics of water wedges, and the thermal properties of bridges. But what happens when the environment isn't the problem, but the people around you are? What happens when a driver isn't just distracted, but actively intoxicated or experiencing a medical emergency behind the wheel? In the next part, we are going to look at the unpredictable human. How do you spot a drunk driver before they cross the median? We will analyze the specific weaving patterns that distinguish a distracted driver from an impaired one. We will also look at the high-stakes dashcam footage of ghost drivers, people traveling the wrong way on high-speed interstates. What is the one specific maneuver that safety experts recommend when you see headlights coming toward you in your own lane? The answer could be the difference between a minor incident and a head-on collision in our next deep dive. The specific maneuver that safety experts across the United States recommend when faced with a wrong-way driver is the immediate execution of a hard right-hand exit from the roadway. This might seem counterintuitive if there is a ditch or a guardrail, but historical trends in head-on collision data prove that any outcome involving a stationary object or a sideswipe is infinitely preferable to the terminal physics of a frontal impact. To understand why, we have to look at closing speeds. If you are traveling at 65 miles per hour and a ghost driver is approaching you at the same speed, the effective impact velocity is 130 miles per hour. At these speeds, the energy dissipation required by the vehicle's crumple zones exceeds their structural capacity. By steering right, you are exploiting the fact that most wrong-way drivers, upon realizing their error, will instinctively steer toward the median, which is your left, in a panicked attempt to find an exit or a shoulder. If you steer left, you are steering directly into their most likely path of correction. Imagine if you are Robert, a 42-year-old contractor in Atlanta, Georgia. It is 2:15 a.m. on a Saturday in 2026. You are driving home on the J400 after an unusually late shift. Your 2026 pickup truck is equipped with advanced V2X or vehicle-to-everything communication. Suddenly, your dashboard illuminates with a high-priority alert. Warning, wrong-way driver detected 2 miles ahead. This is the future of road safety, where infrastructure sensors detect a vehicle entering an off-ramp in the wrong direction and broadcast that data to every connected vehicle in the vicinity. However, data from early 2026 implementations shows that there is still a significant latency between the detection and the driver's response. Robert's dashcam captures the chilling reality of the situation. In the distance between the silhouettes of other cars, a pair of headlights appears where they should not be. This is the ghost driver. Historical trends suggest that over 60% of wrong-way drivers are significantly impaired by alcohol or controlled substances. Their perception of the road is distorted, often leading them to believe they are in the slow lane of a standard highway when they are actually in the fast lane of an interstate. Robert observes the weaving pattern. A distracted driver, perhaps someone looking at a mobile device, typically exhibits jerky micro-corrections. They drift slightly, realize it, and snap the wheel back. An impaired driver, however, exhibits what experts call the weaving with a wide radius. Their drifts are long, smooth, and rhythmic, as their motor skills lack the precision for fine adjustments. Robert's potential outcome in this scenario is determined by his ability to maintain a 360-degree awareness. He cannot just slam on his brakes because there are other vehicles behind him who may not have V2X technology yet. He has to perform a controlled exit to the right shoulder. As the ghost driver streaks past him, missing his side mirror by less than a foot, the dashcam records the terrifying speed differential. The unbelievable nature of this near miss isn't just the proximity. It's the total lack of awareness from the other driver, who continues at highway speed into the night. Step by step, let's break down the identification of an incapacitated driver. Imagine if you are driving behind a sedan on a suburban road in Ohio. The car is moving at 20 miles per hour in a 45 mile per hour zone. It is not weaving, but it is slowly drifting toward the curb. This could be a case study of a medical emergency, such as a diabetic shock or a cardiac event. In 2026, some high-end vehicles feature driver monitoring systems that use infrared cameras to track eye movement and heart rate through the steering wheel. If these systems detect an unresponsive driver, they are programmed to activate hazard lights, initiate a controlled stop within the lane, and contact emergency services via satellite link. However, on the thousands of older vehicles still on the road, this technology doesn't exist. The near miss occurs when you attempt to pass this slow-moving vehicle. As you pull alongside, the incapacitated driver's foot may slip or their weight may shift, causing the car to suddenly veer into your path. The tactical response here is to avoid the pass entirely. You must treat a vehicle with an unpredictable speed and lane position as a mobile hazard zone. The goal is to maximize the distance between your front bumper and their rear bumper, providing a massive buffer for any sudden maneuvers they might make. We must also discuss the high-stakes story of the inattentive merge. This is a human error that creates some of the most dramatic footage in our compilation. Consider a scenario on the I-95 in Florida. A driver in the far-right lane realizes they are about to miss their exit. Without looking, they cut across 3 lanes of high-speed traffic. This is known as the dive bomb. The human brain, under the stress of a missed opportunity, often experiences a form of task saturation. The driver is so focused on the exit sign that they literally stop processing the visual data of the cars in the other lanes. This is a biological failure of the visual cortex. The dashcam footage of these events shows cars swerving in a chain reaction, like a row of falling dominoes. The unbelievable near miss happens when the last car in the chain, perhaps a heavy SUV, is forced into the grass median at 70 miles per hour. In 2026, the potential outcomes of these off-road excursions have been improved by the widespread use of roll stability control. This system uses gyroscopic sensors to determine if the vehicle is at risk of flipping and can apply braking force to the specific wheels needed to keep the chassis level. But even with this technology, the human terror of a 70-mile-per-hour slide on wet grass is something no sensor can mitigate. As we analyze these human-driven near misses, we see a recurring pattern of the panic brake. When a driver is startled by a ghost driver or a sudden merge, their most common reaction is to lock the brakes. This is a primitive survival response. However, once the wheels are locked or the ABS is at full capacity, you lose a significant portion of your steering authority. Expert-level near misses often show the driver doing the exact opposite. They stay off the brake to maintain the traction needed for a high-speed steering maneuver, only braking once the path is clear. To understand the energy involved, we can use the formula E/K equals 2, 1, mv 2. When you double your speed, you quadruple your kinetic energy, which explains why a near miss at 70 miles per hour is significantly more dangerous than one at 35, requiring exponentially more road to dissipate that energy. Why do we see so many of these moments in our 2026 compilation? It is because the transition period between manual driving and fully autonomous systems is the most dangerous era in transportation history. We have a mix of humans who are becoming more distracted and machines that are not yet perfect. This creates a volatile environment where the unbelievable is becoming common. We have looked at impairment, medical emergencies, and the physics of the head-on collision. But there is another side to the human element on US roads, one that is not accidental. Sometimes the near miss isn't a result of a mistake or a medical crisis. Sometimes it is a deliberate act of aggression. What happens when the vehicle next to you isn't just drifting, but is actively trying to run you off the road? How does the psychology of the near miss change when the other driver is using their car as a weapon? In the next part of this masterclass, we are entering the dark world of road rage. We will perform a forensic analysis of the pre-attack indicators of an aggressive driver. Why is the act of tailgating actually a form of psychological signaling? We will look at the case studies of high-speed confrontations on the freeways of Los Angeles and New York. What is the one thing you should never do when someone is brake-checking you on a bridge? The physics of intimidation and the legal reality of self-defense on the highway are coming up next. Stay tuned as we break down the most volatile near misses ever caught on camera. To understand the psychology of the shield, we must first analyze why a person who is otherwise law-abiding and courteous can transform into a high-speed predator the moment they grip a steering wheel. This is the de-individuation effect. When a driver like Alex, a 28-year-old delivery professional in New Jersey, is out on the Garden State Parkway in June 2026, He is essentially operating from within a 2-ton suit of armor. The glass and steel provide a sense of anonymity and invulnerability that strips away the social contracts we follow in a grocery store or an office. In Alex's case study, the near miss begins not with a crash, but with a perceived slight. Alex merges into the left lane to pass a slower-moving vehicle, inadvertently cutting off a high-performance coupe that was traveling at 85 miles per hour. In the mind of the aggressive driver, this isn't just a traffic inconvenience. It is a personal challenge to their dominance of the roadway. Historical trends in the U.S. show that road rage incidents have shifted from simple shouting matches to active vehicular assault. We are seeing a rise in what experts call the escalation ladder. The first rung is the visual gaze. The aggressor speeds up to align their vehicle with Alex's, attempting to establish eye contact. This is a primary pre-attack indicator. If Alex makes eye contact, he validates the aggressor's challenge. In 2026, safety masterclasses teach that the most effective tool in your arsenal is the total lack of engagement. By looking straight ahead and maintaining a neutral expression, you deny the aggressor the psychological dopamine hit they are seeking. The second rung of the ladder is tailgating, or the physics of intimidation. The aggressor moves their front bumper within 5 feet of Alex's rear bumper. At 65 miles per hour, this leaves a reaction window of approximately 0.05 seconds. This is mathematically impossible for a human to navigate. If Alex has to tap his brakes for a legitimate reason, such as debris or a slowing car ahead, the potential outcome is a high-speed rear-end collision. However, in the world of road rage, the aggressor is banking on Alex's fear. They are using their vehicle as a psychological weapon to force Alex to move. This leads us to the most dangerous maneuver caught on U.S. dashcams, the brake check. Imagine if Alex, feeling pressured and frustrated, decides to retaliate by tapping his brakes to scare the tailgater. Or conversely, the aggressor pulls in front of Alex and slams on their brakes. This is a high-stakes game of physics. When a vehicle slams on its brakes at highway speeds, it creates a massive deceleration force. If the following car is too close, the kinetic energy has nowhere to go but into the chassis of the lead vehicle. The dashcam footage of these events often shows the following car diving, where the front suspension compresses, and then the inevitable impact. But why are bridges particularly lethal for these confrontations? Consider the George Washington Bridge or the Chesapeake Bay Bridge. These are environments of thermal isolation and zero escape. On a bridge, there is no shoulder. There is no grass median to swerve into. You are in a concrete corridor. If an aggressor initiates a brake check on a bridge, they are effectively trapping you. Historical trends in 2026 show that insurance companies are now using AI-driven forensic analysis of dashcam footage to determine intent in these scenarios. If the footage shows the lead vehicle accelerating rapidly to get in front of the victim before braking, it is no longer classified as an accident. It is classified as assault with a deadly weapon. In many U.S. jurisdictions, the car is legally viewed as a weapon once it is used with the intent to harm or intimidate. Step by step, let's look at the tactical retreat. If you find yourself in Alex's position, being pursued by an aggressive driver, the worst thing you can do is drive home. By doing so, you are leading a volatile person to your place of sanctuary and revealing your location. Case studies from the LAPD suggest that you should instead navigate toward a well-lit, public area, preferably a police station or a firehouse. In 2026, many vehicles have an integrated emergency signal that can be triggered via voice command, alerting local authorities to your GPS coordinates and live streaming your dashcam feed directly to emergency dispatch. This technology has turned unbelievable near misses into evidence-backed criminal cases. The legal reality of self-defense on the highway is also evolving. While you have the right to protect yourself, the law generally requires that you attempt to retreat if it is safe to do so. A near miss that occurs because you tried to race the aggressor or block them from passing can lead to shared liability. Even if you didn't start the confrontation, your participation in the escalation can result in the loss of your insurance coverage or criminal charges for reckless driving. This is the long tail of road rage. A 30-second burst of anger can result in years of legal and financial fallout. We must also analyze the high-speed pit maneuver attempt, a chillingly common feature in 2026 road rage compilations. This occurs when an aggressor nudges the rear quarter panel of the victim's car, attempting to spin them out. The physics here are based on the moment of inertia. By applying force to the furthest point from the car's center of gravity, the aggressor can easily overcome the friction of the rear tires. The unbelievable near misses in these clips often show the victim's car swaying violently, tires smoking as the electronic stability control fights to keep the vehicle straight. In many 2026 EVs, the individual motor control at each wheel can actually counteract a pit maneuver by applying torque in the opposite direction of the spin, effectively bracing the car against the impact. Why does this happen so frequently in cities like New York, Los Angeles, and Atlanta? Data suggests it's a combination of high-density traffic and the human stress response. When we are stuck in traffic, our cortisol levels spike. When a minor incident occurs, we are already in a state of high alert, making us more likely to skip the logical evaluation phase and go straight to the fight response. This is why the masterclass emphasizes the 10-second rule. Before you react to a driver who cut you off, count to 10. It takes that long for the prefrontal cortex to regain control from the amygdala. As we wrap up this forensic analysis of the aggressive driver, we have to recognize that while humans are often the source of road hazards, they aren't the only ones. Sometimes the threat doesn't have a face or a motive. Sometimes the very ground you are driving on is the enemy. What happens when the infrastructure we trust every day, the bridges, the tunnels, and the overpasses, decides to fail without a second's notice? How do you survive a near miss when the road ahead literally disappears into a sinkhole or a bridge expansion joint fails at 60 miles per hour? In the next part of our masterclass, we are diving into infrastructure nightmares. We will look at the case studies of the 2026 urban sinkholes and the terrifying physics of bridge resonance. How can a tiny crack in a steel beam lead to an unbelievable dashcam moment that looks like a scene from a disaster movie? We will also explore the phantom obstacles, the objects that fall from overpasses, and the structural failures that turn a routine commute into a survival scenario. Why is your choice of lane on a multi-tier highway the most important decision you'll make today? The answers are in our next deep dive into the crumbling bones of the American road. The reason your choice of lane on a multi-tier highway is the most significant decision of your commute involves a concept known as structural spalling. Imagine you are Michael, a 45-year-old architect driving through the double-decker sections of Interstate 35 in Austin, Texas. It is a humid afternoon in May 2026. Michael chooses the lower deck because it offers shade from the relentless Texas sun. However, what he doesn't see are the microscopic processes occurring in the concrete ceiling, just 20 feet above his roof. Historical trends in U.S. civil engineering indicate that many multi-tier structures built in the mid to late 20th century are reaching a critical phase of their life cycle. When moisture and salt penetrate the porous concrete, they reach the internal steel reinforcement bars or rebar. The resulting oxidation causes the metal to expand up to 4 times its original volume. This internal pressure literally explodes the concrete from the inside out, creating chunks of debris ranging from the size of a pebble to the size of a microwave. Case studies of concrete spalling on the I-95 in Philadelphia and the aging overpasses in Chicago show that this debris does not fall with a warning. In Michael's unbelievable near miss, a 10-pound slab of concrete detaches from the upper deck support beam. At the moment of detachment, the slab has 0 horizontal velocity, but is subjected to a gravitational acceleration of 9.8 meters per second squared. Because Michael is traveling at 60 miles per hour, or 88 feet per second, the geometry of the impact is a high-speed diagonal. His dashcam captures a gray blur entering the frame from the top edge. The potential outcome of a direct hit on the windshield would be a total structural failure of the safety glass and a likely loss of vehicle control. Michael's survival in this masterclass of infrastructure awareness comes down to his lane positioning. He stays in the center lane, furthest from the vertical support columns. Historical data suggests that spalling is most frequent near joints and support pillars where water runoff is concentrated. By staying in the center, Michael creates a buffer zone. The concrete slab slams into the asphalt 3 feet to his left, shattering into a cloud of dust that obscures his rearview camera. The unbelievable nature of this moment is that Michael didn't even see the threat until it hit the ground. His safety was determined by a proactive choice made 3 miles back. Now let's shift our deep dive to the invisible enemy, the sinkhole. Imagine if the road beneath you simply ceased to exist. In 2026, the United States is seeing an increase in urban sinkholes due to aging water infrastructure and shifting groundwater levels. Consider a case study in Florida, a state characterized by karst topography. This is a geological formation where the subsurface is comprised of soluble rocks like limestone. When acidic rainwater or leaking sewer pipes dissolve the limestone, they create massive underground caverns. The surface asphalt remains intact, acting as a bridge over an empty void, until the weight of a vehicle exceeds the sheer strength of the remaining soil. Imagine Sarah, a 32-year-old nurse in Tallahassee, driving her 2026 electric sedan. She is traveling at a moderate 35 miles per hour on a suburban collector road. Her dashcam shows a perfectly normal street until, without warning, the car in front of her appears to drop into the earth. This is a cover collapse sinkhole. In a matter of milliseconds, the hydraulic support of the soil is gone. The potential outcomes of driving into a sinkhole involve not just the initial drop, but the secondary risk of the vehicle being submerged in water or crushed by the subsequent collapse of the hole's edges. Sarah's unbelievable near-miss is a result of her following distance and her recognition of the sinking horizon. As the car ahead disappeared, Sarah didn't just see a car braking. She saw the entire environment shift downward. She performed an emergency stop, her tires chirping against the pavement just inches from the jagged edge of a 15-foot deep crater. Step by step, the physics of this stop were aided by her vehicle's 2026 electronic brake force distribution, which maximized the friction of the rear tires even as the car's weight shifted forward. This case study highlights why maintaining a visual lead of 15 to 20 seconds is vital. It isn't just about watching other cars, but watching the very stability of the horizon line. We must also analyze the expansion joint failure. Bridges are living structures. They expand in the summer heat and contract in the winter cold. To allow for this movement, engineers use metal expansion joints, those rhythmic thumping strips you feel under your tires. In 2026, many of these joints on major U.S. bridges, like the Verrazano Narrows or the San Francisco-Oakland Bay Bridge, are under extreme stress from increased vehicle weights, especially from heavy electric vehicle battery packs. Historical trends show that if the bolts securing these metal fingers fail, the joint can lift, creating a 6-inch steel lip at highway speeds. Imagine a driver hitting this lip at 70 miles per hour. The force is equivalent to hitting a vertical curb. The potential outcome is an immediate tire blowout, a shattered suspension, and in many cases, the deployment of airbags which can further disorient the driver. The unbelievable dashcam moments from these events often show cars being launched into the air, losing all steering and braking authority as their tires leave the pavement. Surviving an expansion joint failure requires a firm, two-handed grip on the steering wheel to counteract the violent tug of a blown tire, and a resistance to the urge to slam on the brakes, which could cause a rollover if the suspension is already compromised. Beyond structural failures, we have to consider the vertical threat. Objects falling from overpasses. Whether it is debris from an unsecure load on a crossing highway or, unfortunately, intentional acts of vandalism, the physics are terrifying. A 1-pound object dropped from a 30-foot overpass into the path of a car going 70 miles per hour carries the same kinetic energy as a high-caliber projectile. In 2026, dashcam compilations have documented everything from falling tires to frozen slush sliding off the tops of semi-trailers. The forensic analysis of these near misses reveals that drivers who survive often exhibit a specific behavior. They look through the overpass, not just at it. They are scanning the railings for anomalies before they pass underneath. If you see a vehicle parked on an overpass or a figure near the edge, your internal alarm should trigger a lane change. This is the geometry of avoidance. By moving just one lane over, you exponentially decrease the probability of a direct hit, as the target zone for a falling object is remarkably small at high speeds. Why is this happening more frequently in 2026? Data from the American Society of Civil Engineers points to a massive backlog in structurally deficient bridge ratings across the U.S. We are operating in a window where technology is advancing faster than the concrete foundations beneath it. Every near miss involving a crumbling bridge or a sudden sinkhole is a case study in why situational awareness must extend beyond the tail lights in front of you and down to the very asphalt you are riding on. We have broken down the spalling of multi-tier highways, the geology of the sinkhole, and the high-speed traps of bridge expansion joints. We have looked at how a simple choice of lane can be the difference between a routine drive and a disaster movie. But as we move toward the final chapters of this masterclass, we have to address the most complex element of the modern road, the digital one. In the next part, we are going to explore the technological ghost in the machine. What happens when the sensors that are supposed to keep you safe suddenly hallucinate? We will look at the terrifying phenomenon of phantom braking in autonomous systems, and what happens when a 2026 car's AI mistakes a shadow for a concrete wall at 80 miles per hour. Why are some of the most unbelievable near misses actually caused by the very safety features we paid thousands of dollars for? The dark side of automotive automation and the battle between man and machine is our next deep dive. The phenomenon known as phantom braking is perhaps the most chilling example of the technological ghost in the machine. In 2026, as we push toward Level 3 and Level 4 autonomy, the software controlling our vehicles has become a complex tapestry of neural networks and sensor fusion. But a neural network is only as good as its training data. Imagine you are Chloe, a 27-year-old graphic designer driving through the rolling hills of Pennsylvania on a clear October afternoon. You are maintaining 70 miles per hour on the Pennsylvania Turnpike, and your vehicle is in its most advanced autonomous cruising mode. You feel like a passenger in your own car. Suddenly, without a single obstacle in sight, the vehicle initiates a full emergency braking maneuver. This is not a gentle slowdown. It is a maximum force application of the calipers that slams your chest against the seatbelt and sends anything on the passenger seat flying into the footwell. Why did this happen? Case studies of 2026 autonomous system logs reveal a recurring pattern of sensory conflict. Chloe's car uses a combination of high-resolution cameras and long-range radar. As she approached an overpass, the low afternoon sun cast a long, sharp-edged shadow across the asphalt. To the camera, this looked like a solid, dark object, possibly a barrier or a stalled vehicle. Simultaneously, the radar detected a return from the metal structure of the bridge above. The AI, programmed to prioritize safety above all else, could not resolve the discrepancy between the camera's dark shadow and the radar's overhead return fast enough. In the hierarchy of digital decision-making, the potential outcome of hitting a stationary object is weighted so heavily that the system chooses a phantom brake over the risk of a collision. The unbelievable near miss in Chloe's case study occurs behind her. The driver of the following vehicle, an older model truck without automatic braking, has less than a second to react to Chloe's sudden deceleration. This is the ripple effect of automation failure. In 2026, historical trends show that while autonomous systems reduce certain types of accidents, they have introduced new, high-velocity risks. Chloe's dashcam captures the terrifying sight of the truck swerving into the median, missing her bumper by a fraction of an inch, all because her car hallucinated a threat that didn't exist. We also have to examine the magnet lane effect. This occurs when the lane keep assist or LKA system becomes confused by conflicting road markings. Imagine Jordan, a 31-year-old teacher in Seattle, driving through a massive construction zone on Interstate 5 in 2026. The original white lines have been ground away, but in the rain, the scars from the grinding reflect light in a way that mimics a lane marker. Additionally, there are new temporary orange lines. Jordan's car, using its vision processing unit, suddenly decides the old ground-away line is the correct path and initiates a sharp steering input toward a concrete Jersey barrier. This is a failure of edge case detection. Step by step, the system's logic follows a confidence interval. When the confidence in the orange line drops due to glare or rain, the system looks for the next best candidate. If the scar in the pavement has a higher contrast than the temporary line, the car will follow the scar. The unbelievable dashcam footage from these incidents shows drivers physically wrestling the steering wheel back from the car's computer. In 2026, some vehicles have implemented a haptic resistance sensor that allows the driver to override the computer with a specific amount of force, but that initial jerk toward a barrier is enough to cause a heart-pounding near miss. Another technological trap is the adaptive cruise control resume. Historical trends in 2026 indicate that many near misses happen when a vehicle is stopped in traffic and the driver uses the resume function. Imagine if you are in a line of cars and the vehicle in front moves. Your car accelerates to match its previous set speed of 65 miles per hour. However, if the car in front was only clearing the way for a cyclist or a pedestrian you hadn't seen, your car may accelerate directly toward that vulnerable road user. The AI is looking for a lead vehicle, not a small, low-contrast object like a bicycle. The potential outcome is a high-speed impact with an unprotected person. We must also discuss the over-the-air update glitch. In 2026, your car is essentially a smartphone on wheels. Manufacturers push software updates overnight to improve performance or fix bugs. However, case studies have documented instances where a new update introduces a regression in the sensor calibration. Imagine waking up, getting into your car, and realizing halfway to work that your blind spot monitoring is no longer detecting motorcycles. You go to change lanes and only a frantic honk from a biker saves you from a fatal collision. The near miss is unbelievable because you trusted the technology to be your eyes, and the software betrayed you. This brings us to the concept of automation complacency. When we use these systems, our brains enter a state of reduced vigilance. We are no longer active drivers, we are supervisors. And humans are historically terrible at supervision. We become bored. We look at our phones. We look at the landscape. When a technological ghost appears, be it a phantom brake or a lane keep error, our reaction time is tripled because we first have to realize that the car is failing, then orient ourselves to the situation and then take action. In 2026, the delta between the car's failure and the driver's intervention is where the most terrifying near misses live. We are also seeing the rise of digital deception. In some urban environments, pranksters have used high-lumen projectors to cast fake lane lines or stop signs onto the road at night. A 2026 autonomous system, which processes light patterns faster than the human eye, may react to these fake inputs instantly. A dashcam from a street in San Francisco shows a car suddenly swerving for a projected pothole that wasn't there. This is a new frontier of road safety where the infrastructure isn't just physical, it's information-based. The unbelievable near misses in this part of our masterclass serve as a stark reminder. Technology is a supplement, not a substitute. We have dissected the physics of phantom braking, the geometry of lane keep errors, and the psychology of automation dependency. But as we reach the final stage of our deep dive, we have to look at the one thing that connects every single one of these moments. We have looked at physics, biology, chemistry, and digital logic. But what happens when all of these fail at once? In the final part of our 10-part masterclass, we are looking at the perfect storm. We will analyze the most complex, multi-vehicle near misses where luck was the only surviving factor. We will wrap up everything we have learned, from the Bernoulli principle to the amygdala hijack, and give you the ultimate synthesis of road survival in 2026. What is the one thing that every driver who survived an unbelievable near miss did right, even if they didn't know they were doing it? The final secret to mastering the US road is coming up next in our grand finale. The final secret to mastering the US road is the concept of the proactive exit strategy. It is the cognitive requirement to never occupy a space on the pavement where you only have one option for survival. If you are driving in a manner where your only path to safety is the application of your brakes, you have already surrendered your agency to the laws of physics and the whims of the drivers around you. To truly understand this, we must look at the synthesis of everything we have covered. The Bernoulli principle of air pressure, the amygdala hijack of the human brain, the structural decay of American infrastructure, and the digital hallucinations of 2026 autonomous systems. When these factors converge simultaneously, we witness the perfect storm. Consider the case study of Emily, a 26-year-old medical resident in Tampa, Florida. It is a humid morning in November 2026.
Emily is navigating a dense fogban on Interstate 75.
In this environment, every risk we have discussed is amplified. The fog creates a state of reduced contrast, which confuses the 2026 vision-based sensors of her sedan. The moisture on the road combines with the accumulated surface oils to create a low-friction surface. Because the visibility is less than 50 feet, the historical trends of following distances are ignored as drivers subconsciously cluster together for a sense of direction, a dangerous phenomenon known as drafting in the dark. The unbelievable near-miss begins when a non-connected commercial vehicle 300 yards ahead experienced a catastrophic tire delamination. Because this older truck lacks vehicle-to-everything or V2X communication, Emily's car receives no digital warning. The first indicator is the sudden, violent swerve of the vehicle immediately in front of her. In this millisecond, Emily's potential outcome is dictated by her visual lead. While most drivers are looking at the bumper in front of them, Emily has trained herself to look through the glass of the leading cars to see the silhouettes of hazards further down the road. As the car in front of her swerves, it reveals a stopped vehicle and a massive road gator in Emily's direct path. If she slams on her brakes, the physics of the low-friction surface mean her anti-lock braking system will engage, but her stopping distance will exceed the available space by 40%. This is where the proactive exit strategy manifests. Throughout her drive, Emily has been mentally tagging the shoulder to her right as her evergreen exit. She knows the shoulder is clear because she has been checking her mirrors every 5 to 8 seconds, maintaining a mental map of the empty spaces around her vehicle. Instead of a panic brake application, Emily performs a controlled evasive maneuver. She applies moderate braking to shift the vehicle's weight to the front tires, increasing their contact patch and grip, and then steers firmly toward the shoulder. Her 2026 electronic stability control detects the rapid steering input and prepares the outer suspension to resist a rollover. The dashcam footage shows her car sliding past the wreckage with less than 2 inches of clearance. The near miss is unbelievable because to an outside observer, it looks like luck. In reality, it was the execution of a pre-planned survival path. Step by step, we must analyze the physics of stacked risks in this scenario. The kinetic energy of Emily's vehicle, calculated by the formula
Keskiviikko yhtä suuri kuin
2, 1, mv 2, had to be redirected rather than dissipated. By choosing to steer rather than just brake, she utilized the lateral friction of her tires to change the direction of that energy. If she had combined a full emergency brake with a hard turn, she would have exceeded the traction circle of her tires, leading to a terminal slide. This is a fundamental law of performance driving that every American driver in 2026 must internalize. You can steer, or you can brake at maximum capacity, but you rarely can do both effectively at high speeds on a slick surface. Now, let's examine the urban canyon conflict. Imagine Carlos, a 39-year-old architect in Chicago, driving through the loop. The 2026 urban environment is a chaotic mix of human-driven cars, autonomous delivery robots, and distracted pedestrians. Carlos is approaching a blind intersection where the GPS signal is bouncing off the steel-frame skyscrapers, a phenomenon called GPS multipath error. His navigation system thinks he is one block further ahead than he actually is. As Carlos proceeds through a green light, a delivery robot suddenly malfunctions and rolls into the crosswalk. Simultaneously, an aggressive driver in the lane next to him, frustrated by the traffic, decides to perform a high-speed lane change without signaling. This is the multiple threat overlap. Carlos is caught between a digital failure on the road and a human failure in the lane next to him. Historical trends in 2026 urban accidents show that these multivariable incidents are the hardest for AI to solve because they require a level of social intuition that machines still lack. Carlos survives the encounter because he practices the concept of acoustic awareness. Despite the high-end noise-canceling cabin of his 2026 luxury SUV, he keeps his audio volume low enough to hear the mechanical hum of the delivery robot and the high-revving engine of the aggressive driver. He hears the threat before he sees it. By the time the delivery robot enters his peripheral vision, Carlos has already covered his brake pedal, reducing his physical reaction time by 300 milliseconds. The near miss is captured by his 360-degree dashcam system, showing the robot brushing against his tire and the aggressive driver's mirror nearly clipping his door. The synthesis of these case studies leads us to the ultimate realization. The drivers who survive the unbelievable are those who remain the active supervisor of their environment. In 2026, we are often told that technology has made the road safer, but the data suggests that technology has simply changed the nature of the risks. The potential outcomes of a drive are still heavily influenced by the human ability to predict the unpredictable. We have broken down the 10-second rule for road rage, the Bernoulli principle for semi-truck safety, the chemistry of oil-slicked roads, and the forensic analysis of infrastructure failure. We have seen how a 10-pound slab of concrete falling from a bridge carries the energy of a projectile, and how a phantom brake can be triggered by a simple shadow. This masterclass has moved beyond the shock value of dashcam compilations to give you the scientific and psychological framework for survival. The final secret to mastering the US road is the total rejection of the "it won't happen to me" fallacy. Every clip you have seen in this series features a driver who woke up that morning expecting a routine day. The difference between those who became a statistic and those who became a case study in survival was often a single choice made seconds before the event. A wider following distance, a cleaner windshield, a better choice of lane, or a refusal to engage with an aggressive peer. As we close this deep dive into the most unbelievable near misses on US roads, we must look toward the future. The landscape of American transportation is shifting under our feet. New laws, new materials, and new forms of artificial intelligence are being deployed on our highways every day. But the laws of physics remain immutable. Momentum, friction, and gravity do not care about the brand of your car or the version of your software. The unbelievable moments we have analyzed are not just entertainment. They are a library of human experience. They are lessons in the fragility of our infrastructure and the resilience of our reflexes. By understanding the lead-in to these events, you are no longer just a driver. You are a tactical operator of a high-energy machine in a complex environment. But there is one final variable we haven't explored in full depth, a threat that is emerging as the primary cause of near misses in the latter half of 2026. It is a phenomenon that bridges the gap between the digital world and the physical road, something that can take control of your vehicle without you ever touching the steering wheel. In our next series, we will be diving into the world of cyberkinetic risks. What happens when the V2X network itself is compromised? How do you handle a near miss when your car's acceleration is being dictated by an external signal? The transition from mechanical to digital driving has opened a door that we can never close, and the next level of road safety is about to get much more complicated. Stay vigilant, maintain your space cushion, and always have an exit strategy. The road is waiting.